374. The S&P 500 down 48 points. The NASDAQ down 200. Coming up, mild before things get wild. We'll tell you what to expect. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 102.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels.
You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no. Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark for JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality and a lot of it.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and we all loved and grew up with the game. Now you're going to love the show. It's on the stage at Hale Center Theater right now, and it's called Clue. It is so funny, so clever, and I've got to tell you this. I love plays that include slow motion scenes, I'm not kidding you, and even rewind scenes. And if you're looking for the best death scene ever witnessed on the stage, it's waiting for you right now at Hale Center Theater in Clue. But there's so much more coming up in the 2024 season, and that includes Fiddler on the Roof, that's coming up next, Sound of Music, May We All, a country musical, The Time Machine, The Nutty Professor, Aladdin, The Magician's Elephant, and Beauty and the Beast. It's going to be a great season at Hale Center Theater. Go to hct.org to get your season tickets, individual tickets, and of course, gift cards.
This Monday Tax Tip is brought to you by Susan Spears, CEO of the Utah Association of CPAs.
Do you have a dependent in college? Do you depend on tuition tax credits to reduce your tax liability? Form 1098-T is a statement sent by schools and copied to the IRS that verifies that you paid what the IRS calls qualified educational expenses in the preceding tax year. If you don't get this official verification, you cannot claim the American Opportunity or Lifetime Learning Tax credits for the tuition, books, supplies, and equipment expense needed for classes. The student will need to contact the educational institution and request the Form 1098-T. Your CPA will be able to assist you as well.
Get the most out of your income tax preparation when you hire a CPA. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. That's uacpa.org. Listen to KSL on Monday for more tax tips from the Utah Association of CPAs.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Neese.
Fire crews have doused a vehicle fire in Draper, northbound I-15, just before the Bangerter Highway exit. It is still blocking a right lane of traffic, but no real delays in the area. Lagoon is looking for ride maintenance technicians. Lagoon offers excellent mechanical training programs with amazing career opportunities. Ride maintenance technician position is full-time and year-round. Details, visit lagoonpark.com/jobs. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hazy and sunny today with a high in the upper 50s. Tomorrow a storm moves into southern Utah, which means we get a chance of showers on the Wasatch Front. Then much cooler on Friday with a mix of rain and snow. Right now it's sunny and 57 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, throughout the week this week, we've, of course, been covering the attack in Jordan that took the lives of 3 U.S. military personnel and the headlines that follow all of that in terms of response, what it should and shouldn't be, what it means. And today we want to just step back a little bit beyond the headlines, and we want to just rethink what we think we know. We want to look at the history, we want to look at the region, and we want to look at what comes next. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's often difficult in our instant certainty, fast forward kind of world to just keep skimming across the surface when we have incidents like this in regions of the world that are complicated and complex. And our job is to help you slow that down, help you connect the dots, make the news make sense. And I'm really excited to have back on the program Elliot Abrams, Senior Fellow for Middle Eastern Studies at the Council of Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C., someone who understands this region of the world in a very unique way and was actually part of a fascinating discussion at Yale with a very diverse group and proved out the fact that we can have differences of opinion and we can have meaningful, elevated conversation in the process. And Elliot, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. Very good to be on.
First of all, give us a little sense of this conversation that you had just a couple of days ago at Yale.
Yeah.
I found that fascinating and very enlightening.
This was an open discussion. It was an event advertised on the Yale campus, sponsored by the William F. Buckley Institute there, but open to everybody. And, we had a decent crowd in one of the classrooms, and two young women sat down in the first row who looked like Arab women, and one of them, with a head covering, and gave me very fierce looks as soon as they sat down. So I knew these were not friendlies, and both of them asked questions. And I have to say, what I'd call hostile questions, but perfectly reasonable hostile questions. Not screaming, not holding up signs, and mostly about Gaza. And, I said, look, I don't agree with what you're saying about it. I don't agree with your take. Here's why, ABC. And it was a reasonable exchange. They seemed a little bit surprised that they were called on. But, that's what we're trying to do there, have a debate.
Yeah, that's good. That's what we need to do. One of the things that you pointed out in that discussion, as it relates to Gaza, and I want to start there, in kind of that response in terms of the Palestinians, that even were the Israeli forces to immediately leave, the Palestinians still wouldn't be free. It's not a democracy in Gaza, and there's sort of that magic thinking in there that if Israel just steps back, then all will be well in the region. Give us a sense in terms of kind of the historics and why that it might be a nice bumper sticker slogan or something nice for someone to put in a fundraising email, but really isn't reality in terms of policy.
No, it's not. And the phrase I like to use is people talk about Palestine being free, but they never seem to care about Palestinians being free. When they got hold, this was under the Oslo Accords in the 90s, when Israel pulled back and let them run their own affairs in the West Bank and in those days in Gaza too, under the Palestinian Authority, which is still there, the guy that everybody agreed to put in charge was Yasser Arafat. And Yasser Arafat was not only a terrorist, he was a dictator. And he immediately took charge. If you were not for him, you got nothing. If you were for him, you got a bit of the gravy that he was getting from all the foreign aid. And, he shut down all of the civic associations, all the NGOs. They did not have free elections. They did not have freedom of speech against him. And, nobody really cared about that. Today, it's now 2024. Their last election was 2016. And it is not a democracy. There's no freedom of the press. There's no freedom of speech. And I'm not just talking about Gaza under Hamas. This is true in the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, too. If you created, you took your magic wand and said, okay, you're a state. February 1st, you're a state. It would not be a democracy. There's no way it would be a democracy because they don't have the institutions for it. And frankly, with the exception of a few years under George W. Bush, the U.S. government hasn't cared much about that. Of course, the Arab governments don't care because none of them are democracies, so they're not going to make a big deal out of this. So nobody has cared, and it's just silly to talk about it as if Palestinians would be free if you recognize the Palestinian state tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's, again, it's helping us get past just the headlines and the bumper stickers and the clickbait stuff that we get served up every day. Help us with a little bit broader perspective in terms of the region itself. Obviously, the two-state solution is such an interesting thing, and the relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Now we have this interesting dynamic as it relates to Iraq, and especially their funding of all of these different proxy groups. Talk to us a little bit about the policy issue in terms of the Biden administration, in terms of how do we actually change that dynamic?
Well, this goes back a very long time. I mean, Iran's been killing Americans since the 1980s. And they have a very brilliant way. Got to give them credit. They figured out a great system. They do it always through proxies. Proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas, or they have Shia militia groups in Iraq and Syria, and they have the Houthis now in Yemen, who are attacking our ships, and they don't ever do it themselves. And they always say whenever there's an attack, "Hey, don't look at us." But they are, of course, arming and funding all these groups. And unfortunately, we've gone along with this. We've played this game, where we go after their proxies. We hit them in Iraq. We hit them in Syria. We hit them in Yemen now, the Houthis, but we never go after the people who are really behind it in Iran. Now, President Biden has a very interesting decision to make in the next few days. He's actually said he's made the decision. We don't know what it is. They just killed 3 Americans and wounded a couple of dozen others. Clearly, this comes from Iran. And it's a joke to say, oh, no, they have nothing to do with it. It's just some group someplace. They keep doing it because they keep getting away with it. They never pay a price. Now, the president could keep playing that game. We've been playing it for years under many presidents. Just go after the little proxy group. Or he could hit Iran. My view is, he needs to make Iran pay a price. That doesn't mean World War III. It doesn't mean bombing Tehran. There's a wide range of targets. I mean, you could hit an unmanned buoy that Iran has in the Persian Gulf. You wouldn't kill anybody. It would be a message. You could hit Iranian targets because they have bases in Syria or Iraq. Again, you're not hitting Iran proper. There's a whole long list of targets. But I think it's important now to send them a message. You can't keep doing this. We are tired of it. You just killed 3 Americans. It's not going to happen again.
And it is. It has to change that conversation, the policy around it, and it has to be sustained over time. Is such an important part of all of that. Elliot Abrams, Senior Fellow for Middle Eastern Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C. Always fantastic perspective. We appreciate you making time for us today. I know this is a busy season, unfortunately, but we look forward to having you back to help us, again, get past all of the hype and get down to the issues that will make a difference.
All right. Great to talk with you.
All right. Thanks so much. Elliot Abrams, again, joining us from the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's why it's so important that we slow these things down from time to time. I love the fact that Elliot Abrams went to Yale and had a conversation. He said there were a few there that asked some pretty hard, even hostile questions, but did it in a nice way so they could have a conversation about it. That's a great thing. That's part of what we should be promoting in our interactions in the Middle East, is how we can resolve conflict, how we can debate issues in a different kind of way. I appreciate Elliot helping us get past the headlines of it. We'll watch the response from the administration. I think Elliot's spot on. We have to send a message to Iraq that things have to change, that we're not going to be content with the status quo, and we're not going to be just like that old-fashioned British Bobby who yells stop, or I'll yell stop again. There has to be some consequences for Tehran, and that has to be part of a solution moving forward.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The political accusations will only get louder.
Stop the invasion of our southern border.
He doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it.
The world around us will only become more divided.
1, 2, 3, 4.
With more conflict come key decisions about news stories and the facts. That's why we choose our words carefully at KSL, ask better questions, and leave the conclusions to you. The stakes are higher, and we have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I'm proud to tell you we don't lay off employees when things get tough. During the pandemic, we didn't let one of our installers go. Instead, we had them clean and remodel our offices so they could still get paid. Remember the 2008 housing crisis? It was a financial nightmare for even the biggest contractors. Still, we didn't lay off a single worker. Nope, we sacrificed profits to keep paying everyone. Look, when the economy's down, most contractors are quick to lay off their workers. It's the easiest way to save money when times get tight. But at RGS Exteriors, we're loyal to our people. You know why? Because it's the right thing to do. People first. People always. That's the RGS way. For gutters, siding, windows, and more, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's rgsexteriors.com. 801-280-3110.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try soon. Harry's is available online and in-store at a retailer near you. Get a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/news. That's harrys.com/news. Or check us out at your local Costco for a price you can't find anywhere else. Just look for the Chrome Razor with 13-blade refills at your local Costco. You can't miss it. Exclusive to Costco members.
The Utah Department of Health and Human Services wants to make sure people in Utah have the opportunity to live safe and healthy lives. To do that, they need to understand what services individuals can access in their communities and what barriers they face to accessing services where they live. For this survey, they want to hear from the Utah community, specifically people over 60, adults with disabilities of any kind, caregivers or people that support an older person or adult with a disability, service providers who provide support to older adults or adults with disabilities. They need as many people as possible to take this survey so they can better understand where the gaps are and where improvement is needed. The results of this survey will be delivered to the Division of Aging and Adult Services so they can better meet the needs of people across the state of Utah. To participate in this survey, please go to utahcommunitysurvey.com. All information will remain anonymous and secure. You can also take the survey by phone by calling 800-293-1538, extension 1610.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, Utah County Sheriff's Office say they have found a body during their search for 19-year-old McKenna Minor. They have not been able to confirm if it's her. Second, the Utah legislature is looking to make a $5.5 million expansion to the Provo Airport. Airport Director Brian Torgerson says they have already started. And third, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is under pressure from the Senate Judiciary Committee. They want him to do more to keep kids safe online. Right now we have sunny skies and 57 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and when we look at energy and the environment, we believe those go hand in hand. We just reject the fake fights and the false choices that we often see more so on the national level than the local, but we believe there is a way to have a different kind of conversation when it comes to how do we be careful stewards of the environment, how do we create a path to get there, and what kind of policy is it going to take to make sure that is a reality. So we're going to go from the nation's capital. We'll go right here to Utah's Capitol Hill. Nate Bluin, of course, is one of many Utah senators taking a swing at energy legislation this year, and he joins us now on the line to talk about a couple of things that are front and center in his world. And Senator, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Boyd, thanks for having me.
I want to get into a couple of things that you're working on as it relates to energy and the environment, because I do think we got to explore everything. We got to put everything on the table, because I think we can get there. And so I want to start with some of the things you're focused on in terms of the geothermal space. Give us a sense, one, for our listeners, what does that really mean? And then how does that play into what we should be doing, both in terms of meeting energy need and being careful stewards of the environment?
Yeah, geothermal is really incredible technology. It's seeing a resurgence in recent years with some new technology that really taps into expertise in the drilling sector. And so it's really a nice kind of bipartisan solution that I think everyone is trying to support right now. It taps into heat underneath the ground and provides clean energy that's always on and can really provide a strong backbone for the grid to support other resources as well. So I'm excited about it, and I know colleagues on the other side of the aisle are also excited and working on it as well.
Radical stuff here. But it's the Utah model in the best way. And so, talk to us a little bit, Senator, about some of your approach in terms of some of these proposed bills that you're working on. And let's start with the geothermal in terms of what would that do, how would it be helpful, and what is it that we need to pass in terms of legislation?
Yeah, so the one issue I'm seeing in Utah that's holding us back a bit, and again, we are potentially one of the top 2 or 3 states in the country for potential to tap into geothermal energy. But we haven't seen our utilities, primarily Rocky Mountain Power, our major regulated utility, hasn't really taken this up as a major source of their energy. They do operate a pretty small plant, but with new technology coming on, it's something I want to see them really investing in. And so I'm trying to push them a little bit to set some goals and targets and do some studies at the state level, and hopefully also provide some support to the private companies that are developing these resources, and also the workers in rural communities that are going to help build all this stuff. So kind of a multi-pronged approach there, and some other folks are working on some other tax credits and that sort of thing. And we're already seeing some really big investment in the state and also in some neighboring states, and I want us to be at the forefront.
That's great. And I do think it's one of those where clearly government has a role to play in all of this. And so making sure we get that at the right level and the right way, I think can make a huge difference there. You've also been talking a lot about some of the grid enhancing technology. Give us some sense there. What kind of incentives do we need to be pushing there in order to really transform how we keep that moving along?
Yeah, so grid enhancing technologies are a really nerdy topic that I'm super excited about. It's relatively inexpensive technologies that can support the transmission system better. So these are like software programs, mechanisms that actually sit out on the transmission lines and can measure the wind and allow you to figure out when you can run more energy across the lines because they're actually cooler because the wind's blowing on them and they heat up when you're running energy through the transmission line. So it's stuff that doesn't cost anywhere near as much as building a new transmission line, which is extremely difficult and takes potentially decades. And we can actually pass on some of the savings to consumers, and so it's something the utility can invest in, make a bit of a return off of themselves, and then return some of those savings to our ratepayers. So it's kind of a win-win, and hopefully it's another area where we can get some cross-partisan agreement on, because I think it's pretty common sense stuff.
Yeah, and usually the stuff that we term as nerdy is usually just practical, tactical, and effective.
Right, agreed.
So we wear that as a badge of honor around here. So
Yep.
we're glad you're pushing in that space, because it is where, to me, you can have the big swing for the fences stuff, but that rarely gets us anywhere close to the fences. We usually end up striking out because it just becomes either purely political or absolutely impossible. And so give us a little sense in terms of how you navigate those kinds of conversations to get to the nerdy, to get to the practical, tactical stuff that can make a difference for the environment, can also make a difference for those companies, and can make a difference for the users of energy.
Yeah, I think focusing on the benefits and the economic impacts are really critical, because everyone, I think, shares those values across party lines, across social divides. We all want to see reliable and affordable energy that is hopefully as clean as possible. I mean, if you just look outside right now, actually, I guess the air's not so bad, but it is almost 60 degrees in January in Utah, which is kind of surprising. So we need to be focused on, solutions that play a part in the greater picture. I'd love to swing for the fences, but frankly, being a Democrat here in Utah, we do have to work a little bit around the edges in some of these spaces, and that's fine. I think, something like these grid enhancing technologies can actually lead to 50% increases in capacity on transmission lines, and that is no small amount. So there are pretty small things we can do that really boost the system and hopefully allow us to bring everyone to the table and share in the benefits.
Yeah, it is. It's often those seemingly small things that end up with the big impact in the end, and so those are important conversations to be having. Real quickly, just in our last minute here, Senator, what's the one thing you wish we were talking about or talking about differently when it comes to energy in the state of Utah?
Yeah, I want to talk more about markets. So right now we have these big regulated utilities, and they transact with one another kind of on a bilateral level, one-on-one, and there's no such thing in the West as a competitive market. And other states do, other regions of the country do have these markets set up that allow competitive resources to come on the grid and compete to produce the cheapest energy. And I think that is something that Republicans generally like to see is this driven competition, and it can help clean up the grid too, because right now wind and solar combined with some other technologies are some of the cheapest energy out there. And so we need to be thinking about how do we interact with our neighbors, how do we cooperate and collaborate rather than potentially isolating ourselves off, because we've seen that fail in other states.
Yeah, absolutely. Great perspective, great insight. Senator Nate Bluin, Utah State Senator representing Salt Lake City's District 13. And Senator, really appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to continuing the conversation as we roll it all ahead. Good luck up there on Utah's Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Boyd. Appreciate it.
All right. Great perspective there from Nate Bluin. A lot of things, it's those small and seemingly insignificant things that can make all the difference, and you don't have to have a big political battle in order to do it. You can have a great conversation, get to a good solution, produce the right results, and then hold people accountable. I know, radical stuff. We'll be right back.
1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour: the Utah County Sheriff's Office has found a woman's body while searching for a 19-year-old missing since Sunday. Sergeant Dallin Turner says a crew on horseback was able to follow the trail that led to the discovery.
We were able to locate a set of snowshoes that were left by some trees, and in following footprints left from those, we were able to locate an individual up on the mountain. It does appear to look like a suicide at this point.
Turner could not confirm if the body belongs to McKenna Minor, but said there are some indications she had trouble with mental health. We have suicide prevention resources on our website at kslnewsradio.com. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: no change in interest rates from the Federal Reserve, at least not yet. The Federal Open Markets Committee decided to leave rates unchanged for now because inflation is still above the 2% target rate. Your money at this moment: the Dow down 233 points, the S&P 500 down 63, the NASDAQ down 277. A coalition wants lawmakers to vote no on a proposed resolution that would require a 60% majority to approve ballot initiatives. TJ Ellerbeck with the Rural Utah Project says that's too high of a barrier.
By raising the vote threshold required for a ballot initiative or referendum to pass, the Utah legislature is attempting to take away the voice of Utahns.
The resolution is sponsored by Representative Jason Kyle and Senator Lincoln Fillmore. Coming up, rain and maybe even some snow by the weekend. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Psst. Hey, Mark, remember, getting help from Progressive is so easy. You can use the mobile app, chat with us online, or call us.
And you pick now to tell me.
I couldn't miss Little Grace's ballet recital. Oh, thanks for inviting me, by the way.
Did I?
Because you know I'm always here for you.
Yeah. I can use the mobile app if I need help. Sorry, you're in my wife's seat, though?
Oh, yeah, I gotta go anyway. Tell Grace she nailed her chassé.
Get the help you need from Progressive with our mobile app, online chat, or over the phone. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels. You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no, Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark for JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality and a lot of it.
It's the Boat Show, February 1st through the 4th at Mountain America Expo.
Save $2 at utahboatshow.com.
The Boat Show, fun for the whole family.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are in the final cleanup stages of this earlier vehicle fire in Draper, northbound I-15, a little before Bangerter Highway. It's actually at the top of the 146 South on-ramp, and it's still blocking a right lane of traffic. Then in the Murray-Midvale area, we have a crash westbound on I-215 South Belt near State Street. It, too, is in the cleanup stages and out of traffic on the right. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We're going to be warm today. Highs in the possibly near 60 range in some areas of the Wasatch Front. Cloudy tomorrow, a chance of showers. And then we have more rain, maybe even mixed in with some snow likely on Friday, and much cooler temperatures. Right now, would you believe it is sunny and 59 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
From now until the first Tuesday of November, the most common phrases you're going to hear is battle for the heart and soul of America, most important election of our lifetime, threat to democracy, and on they go. Wrong lines, wrong battles, wrong fights. We want to have a different kind of conversation in terms of what the election actually means and what we all ought to be thinking about and what our role is in that. In the very hot off the press department, even though we don't have presses to do it anymore, newly published in the last hour, a great piece at Deseret.com entitled "The 2024 Election is Not an Existential Threat to Democracy," and someone who focuses on the elections here in the state of Utah, the Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson, is the author of that piece and joins us on the line. And Lieutenant Governor, thanks for joining us today.
Very happy to be with you, Boyd.
As I read through your piece, I was cheering all the way and a big amen at the end. But give us a sense, what sparked this in you? What's the backstory to your penning this opinion piece today at Deseret.com?
Well, of course, I oversee elections in the state of Utah, so I have really felt the heat that comes from the public opinion. And there is a lot of angst out there, a lot of anxiety about the upcoming election. And my concern is that we are couching the 2024 election in this existential way, that no matter who wins, it's a threat to our democracy. And so the losing side is going to feel like they were somehow that something wrong with them, that they were wronged in some way, that it was stolen from them or taken from them, or that they won't be able to see themselves in the future. So I'm trying to get ahead of that and help people understand that, you know what, the country will go on. We'll keep marching forward after 2024, no matter who wins.
Yeah.
It's not all about the president. It's much, much more important to be good people. And we need to be looking inward to ourselves. How are we treating other people? How are we reflecting what we want our politicians to mirror from us?
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And the first Wednesday in November is the one that really matters, because we're all going to get up, regardless of who wins. We're going to go to work. We're going to take care of our families. We're going to check on our neighbor and do those things that do matter. You pointed out in your piece, beautiful phrase that I love, that the arc of American history spans eras much wider than a presidential term, and bonus points for going to Abraham Lincoln. Give us a sense in terms of that idea, in terms of the virtue, and that really one president is not going to determine the existential nature and future of the country.
Well, when President Lincoln was elected, there were seven deep South states who wanted to keep slavery. They were very upset and felt very threatened that their way of life would disappear with the election of a president, President Lincoln. And President Lincoln took his inaugural address to tell them, look, one president, one term in office is not what's going to destroy you or the country or our way of life. That's not what presidents can do. Presidents get their power from the people, and we can't, as long as the people remain virtuous and as long as the people remain vigilant, then one president is not going to be able to do too much damage in the course of their term.
Yeah. Unpack that for us a little bit. I love that phrasing from Lincoln in terms of virtue and vigilance. I think that's a very interesting pairing, but I think it's absolutely crucial to the conversations we're having in our community and throughout the country.
Well, the idea of vigilance, right? People think of vigilance as some sort of a militaristic way or policing others. But I see this as we've got to police ourselves. We have to remain vigilant by making sure that we're participating in elections, that we're participating in civic life, but even more importantly, that we are maintaining our own, we're being vigilant about our own virtue. And President Lincoln, his idea of virtue that he just embodied and he always talked about was the idea that we should be kind to other people, that we shouldn't be strangers. We should be friends to each other. We should get to know people. We should not have malice toward people, even people who have harmed us. We should not have malice toward them. We should stand on principle. We should fight for what we believe in. But in the end, we have to be able to live with one another. And this virtue and vigilance is something that is internal, that we can't look at someone else and say, you're not being virtuous or vigilant, right, in the right way. We have to do that for ourselves. And that's the key. We have to recognize that we the people, are the stewards of our republic. We are the ones that have the responsibility to make sure that it endures. Abraham Lincoln stood on those steps at the Capitol all those years ago. The South had just seceded. He was facing a crisis of the nation, and they didn't heed his words, right? There was a civil war, but we endured that civil war. We have endured so much over the course of history. We can endure this next presidential election. Every election is the most important election in your lifetime. That we hear it every year. Every 4 years, this is the most important election. It's true. Every election is the most important election, but this will not be the last election.
Yeah, and I love that whole idea of it is a reflection that the politics and the politicians tend to reflect or mirror where the people are and what we're actually doing. It is a we the people issue. And I love this idea of vigilance, not in a defensive crouch, warring kind of posture, but in a very intentional, very engaged. If we're intentional, if we're engaged, and if we're thinking about that kind of virtuous kindness and consideration and respect for one another that you describe in the piece at Deseret.com, that I think that's the beginning of a different kind of conversation, as opposed to just these, worst case scenarios and everything's going to fall apart and the sky's going to fall, usually followed by some kind of donation request for, whatever political campaign it is.
Right. And, what's been really disturbing in all of this is the growing acceptance that people are getting. People are becoming to accept this violent rhetoric, right? A growing number of people are coming to believe that maybe political violence would be justified to get their person elected or keep that person out of office. That's the sort of thing that is truly troubling, more than any one president or politician at the top or pundit or talk show host. It's this common, becoming more and more common for regular Americans to kind of have this almost radical acceptance of violence or violent rhetoric, violent talk, or at least violence that someone else might inflict, or violent rhetoric that someone else might say. Just that acceptance, we really need to guard against that, and make sure that sort of thing bothers us, that doesn't become commonplace, and we don't become calloused to that. And that's part of the vigilance, and it's part of the challenge that we're seeing right now. People are becoming more and more acceptant of that sort of behavior and talk. And it's scary, and it has a very detrimental effect on our leaders, even if they're not the recipients of threats. It can have a very negative effect. That intimidation and those threats can have a negative effect on how they represent us.
Yeah, no question, and all of that I think just leads. It's so interesting to me. This kind of rhetoric, this opposition that's not complicated. Deconstruction is just undemanding in so many ways. If you're just yelling and screaming that they're wrong and evil, and therefore, we have to take them out, we have to win. That's where we really lose sight in terms of the principles and the vision in terms of where we're actually trying to go as a nation. Deidre Henderson, Lieutenant Governor for the state of Utah, in charge of elections for this state, so she sees this up close and personal. Brilliant piece at Deseret.com. You should all check that out today. It will get you thinking. There's some quotes in there. There's some questions in there that we all should step back and think again about, and maybe even rethink about what we think we know when it comes to our own rhetoric and how we talk about issues, how we look at those who may believe different, look different, act different, live different, or vote different than we do. It's part of the beauty of the country, and that's what we have to preserve, and it will transcend, as the Lieutenant Governor just shared with us, it'll transcend any one president, any one politician, and any political party as well. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for joining us on Inside Sources today.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, that's Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson. A great piece just went up on Deseret.com just about an hour ago, so you should go check that out. Great reading today, and great things to be thinking about. I love this whole idea of virtue and vigilance. Think about that as a combination of principles and practices today. We'll be right back.
As the new year begins, you and your credit card might be ready for a quiet break. Experience the relief of a low rate with the Mountain America credit card. With a 3% cash bonus on balance transfers, it's more relaxing than ever. Open a Mountain America credit card today for your limited time bonus. Details at macu.com/transfer. Loans and approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Valentine's Day is here. This year, give the ultimate gift. Name a star after your sweetheart. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For 45 years, we've named millions of stars for celebrities, dignitaries, and individuals worldwide. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can give the most memorable gift. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
You can live out your MasterChef dreams when you find a professional on Angie to tackle your dream kitchen remodel. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.
If you've ever set New Year's resolutions before, you know how difficult it is to follow through because you have to wait to see the results. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in honor of your New Year, New You resolutions, Any Hour Services is having our New Year, New System sale. From now until the end of February, Any Hour Services will give you $2,024 off a new furnace and air conditioner, and you don't have to wait to save the money. You get $2,024 off at the time of purchase. The only thing you have to do to qualify for our New Year, New System sale is call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. When you call, there's no obligation to buy. Just schedule a time to meet that works best for you. Let me say that again. From now until the end of February, when you have Any Hour Services install a new furnace and air conditioner, we'll give you $2,024 off. Call Any Hour Services right now and schedule a free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. You may not have that kind of time for weatherization, energy efficiency, and appliance rebates, but we do. Dominion Energy's ThermWise program has experts who know where and how to save money. They help homeowners and businesses find simple ways to conserve natural gas and rebates through upgrades that may help to save even more. We put our energy into helping you conserve it, so you can spend your 10,000 hours becoming an expert in what matters to you. Start with a home energy plan at thermwise.com.
If cabinets were a football team, Euromax cabinets would be the 1985 Bears, maybe the 1984 Niners. If cabinets were a basketball team, Euromax would be the 95-96 Bulls, maybe the 2016-2017 Warriors. If cabinets were a singer, Euromax cabinets would be Neil Diamond, rhinestones, sequins, and all. In fact, Neil Diamond was probably thinking about Euromax cabinets when he wrote and recorded Sweet Caroline. Max and Mike came together to start a cabinet company that brings the unique flair and style of Europe while keeping the craftsmanship and installation of America. Max moved here from Ukraine with years of European style, while Mike has 25 years of cabinet experience here in Utah. This is Hans Olsen, letting you know their service, style, and warranties are unmatched. They can help you design a kitchen to be the talk of the neighborhood. Their showroom's in Pleasant Grove, and you can see their world-class design by going to EuromaxFurniture.com. That's EuromaxFurniture.com. Euromax, built for you.
Sign up for KSL text alerts and you could win cash. Text the word cash to 57500 for a chance to win $250. That's cash to 57500. Plus, you'll get breaking news and traffic updates right to your phone. Want to win more prizes? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking Utah jazz news. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply. For an alternate entry method and complete contest rules, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Dave and Dujanovic.
One person described it like this: I like having 1,000 one-minute conversations. So often we think we've got to dive in head first and know everything before we can speak on something. No, we can have a bunch of little conversations.
There's more than one opinion, and more than one opinion or viewpoint matters. I want our listeners to walk away from the show knowing that more than one opinion is valid.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, a body's been found while searching for 19-year-old McKenna minor. The Utah County Sheriff's Office has yet to identify the body. Second, the Federal Open Markets Committee has chosen to keep interest rates the way they are now, at least for the time being. And third, a coalition is asking Utah lawmakers to vote no to a resolution. It would require future ballot initiatives to have a 60% majority in order to become law. Right now, it is sunny out there and 59 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as the 2024 presidential election cycle continues to move along, as two candidates who are fairly unpopular as a head-to-head matchup, a repeat of 2020, as that appears to be coming more of a reality. Not necessarily, I'm not ready to say it's all reality just yet. A few things have to play out over the next 6 weeks. But as we watch that all play out, it's so interesting. We always talk about the fact that history may not always repeat itself, but it usually rhymes. And someone who's always in rhythm with that and helping us find it is J.T. Young. J.T. is a regular contributor at The Hill. We referenced some of his work from earlier in the week, talking about how President Biden and the Bidenomics message was kind of out-Cartering Jimmy Carter's malaise speech before his defeat at the hands of Ronald Reagan. He's got another piece that came out a little earlier that also just has this really interesting framing and rhyme to it in terms of the elites versus the populists. And JT joins us on the line. And JT, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Boyd, and thank you for having me on.
All right, so let's look at this race, and we've been talking about this a lot in terms of the elites and the populists. Kind of give us let's do the historics first. Let's do the rewind button. Where does this all begin? What does this look like?
Well, Boyd, it's a good question. I mean, this goes back all the way to the 19th century. At least that was the point I put a pin in it for. It goes back to the 1896 convention, where I think the Democrats really tried to stake out their position as being the champion of the common man. And it goes back to William Jennings Bryan there. He stampeded the convention, won the nomination, came out of nowhere to do it. Of course, he was soundly defeated, as most Democrats were in that day. But the Democrats walked away with what seems to be a legacy, and a legacy that they want to hold on to, and that was being the party of the common man. And I think in this election, what we're seeing is that the two parties have really switched places in that regard.
Yeah, and let's unpack that a little bit. It is so fascinating. The Republicans were along kind of the country club elites and the rich and famous, and as you said, it's really kind of pivoted on its head right now. So give us a sense in terms of the Democrats still trying to hold on to that party of the little guy, and at the same time, they have kind of become the party of the elites.
Right. And I think all your listeners can probably, look at their own personal experience. And I think we can all do that in just what we see and hear every day. I mean, it's without question, the liberal line and the Democrats just dominate. We're so used to that being in the mainstream media. And it's so good that you're a voice, crying out in the wilderness, and so to speak, against that. But we're used to that. But we see it on, whether it's in print, we see it in entertainment, we see it in sports, we see it even among the wealthy, as you were saying. If you really think about the really wealthy, they don't reflect, the mainstream values at all anymore. And their opinions, they vote heavily more Democratic than the rest of the population. So I think we've completely seen that the party of the elite really is the Democrat Party now.
Yeah, and so fascinating. Of course, former President Trump in 2016 rode a very populist wave into the White House. Then, of course, lost to Joe Biden in 2020. And now is coming back with kind of a double-down version on the populist and really that grievance message that everything is kind of stacked against the little guy, and that he's going to be the one to kind of punch that through. Kind of walk us through in terms of where that stands, what that rhetoric is looking and sounding like, and what all of us as voters ought to really be thinking about when we look at kind of the elite message versus the populist message, regardless of political party.
Well, yeah, I think what we need to sometimes step back. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the personalities of, as you were just mentioning. I mean, Trump is a larger-than-life personality. There's just no question about that. I mean, he's the most interesting political figure we've seen in a generation. And obviously Biden is the incumbent. Your listeners probably have their own image and picture of him. So we tend to get focused on those. But, I think it's so easy to mistake that 2024 is really not the war. It's really a battle in the larger war over who's going to represent the American people. And Trump has really tapped into the populism, as you said. I mean, he came out of nowhere, which is just unheard of, that he would not just run, but win the nomination, then win the presidency in 2016. Absent COVID, I think we can really think that he might well have won again in 2020. Here he is in 2024, having lost in 2020. And, you think about it, go back and consider most politicians, when they lose a presidential race, are kicked to the curb. And, it's a testament that he's not only not kicked to the curb, but he's basically lapping the Republican field. And if you're looking at the polls, there's virtually no national polls now where he's not leading the incumbent Biden, which is just an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And I want to get to one last thing real quickly in our last minute, JT. I've often talked about it in the context of if Democrats really were the party of the little guy, they'd want to look at any program that touches poverty in any way, shape, or form. We talk about welfare reform. They'd want to know if there's waste, fraud, or abuse, and making sure that we're actually producing results that make a difference and get people out of poverty. And if Republicans want to be the party of the little guy, then they should be talking about different kind of welfare reform, corporate welfare reform, and a lot of the big money favors and those kinds of things. And now it seems that we have both parties kind of playing into the lawyers, the lobbyists, and the favors game, which really isn't populist. It really is another level of elitism that we're seeing in D.C.
Right. I think you're right. And I think, again, this is one of the things that makes Trump such a unique figure and such a threat to the Democrats, is that he's able to go over the heads of the elite and reach the people directly. He doesn't really need the mainstream media, which I'm sure drives them absolutely around the bend. He's able to connect, and he's able to connect with them on a visceral level. And I think that threatens the Democrats so much, and it goes back to where we started our conversation, that Trump is a real threat to stealing their legacy, and they see that.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Great piece as always. JT Young, appreciate you joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
All right, that's JT Young. Has some great pieces up at thehill.com, and I do think this is such an interesting thing in terms of how history goes around, comes around, and I love the way that JT took it back to really the point where the Democrats really took on this idea of, hey, we are going to be the party of the little guy. It goes back to 1896, the National Convention. William Jennings Bryan's speech there really captured the essence of that movement, and it carried the Democrats for a very long time. Now we have this really weird space where you've got former President Trump, clearly a populist, and taking that same kind of message. And so while I think our presidents and candidates are trying to grab that mantle of I'm looking out for the little guy, the reality is both the Republicans and the Democrats seem to be more centered in serving the elite. So that's where the conversation's got to shift. Well, that wraps it up for us in hour number 1 of Inside Sources. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We got a big hour number 2 coming up, including Representative Celeste Malloy, who will join us at 2:20. Stick around. More Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top story this hour, the Utah County Sheriff's Office has found a body while searching for missing 19-year-old McKenna Minor. They can't say for sure if it's her, but Sergeant Dallin Turner says it looks like this person died by suicide.
There were signs of possible that this could be somebody struggling with some mental health issues and somebody that was in a dark place. It doesn't really change what we do. We approach it as just as any normal search of somebody that's just missing.
Investigators are urging people that there are resources available if you are struggling with mental health, and you can find those on our website. That's kslnewsradio.com. Provo could soon be a destination for international flyers. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla explains.
The Provo Airport is asking the Utah legislature for $5.5 million to expand and add international flights. Orem Representative Val Peterson says he hopes it'll end up like the Long Beach Airport, with 10 gates instead of the current 4. Last year, the airport got $3 million. Peterson says that money went to good use and got the airport to the position it is now to even consider expanding this much.
Breeze and Allegiant Airlines both want to add more flights there. Our top national story from ABC News, the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged for the 4th time in a row. The Fed hinted that there would be rate cuts this year, but did not say today when that might happen. Your money at this moment, the Dow ends the day down about 317 points, the S&P 500 down 79, the NASDAQ down 346. Coming up, it's April and January. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Getting your biggest tax refund from Jackson Hewitt can lead to some spirited reactions.
Jackson Hewitt!
Jackson Hewitt is so sure that you'll get your biggest refund that if they don't, you get your money back plus $100.
Jackson Hewitt!
And Jackson Hewitt also guarantees the accuracy of your return for life. So don't just sit there. For your biggest refund guaranteed, walk into a Jackson Hewitt today and dance out Jackson Hewitt! Yeah!
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin up to soft on the party, let's just so roll it back, everybody. Roll it back. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The crib is always stocked. It's our party wine. It's cushion and things so our cheeks feel flat. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Utah County, we have an accident northbound. I-15 is just north of Center Street, Provo. It is blocking a right lane of traffic and a lot of vehicles involved with this. But so far, no major delays. Just scoot out of that right lane and you'll be fine to get around it. With fresh snow comes fresh deals at Murdoch Chevrolet. Right now, lease a 2024 Silverado 1500 for only $399 per month. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Clouds moving in overnight, and tomorrow we get a chance of rain, then much cooler on Friday with a rain-snow mix and a high in the 40s. Right now, though, it's sunny and 61 degrees. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're going to give you a real think again moment. I am certain you did not wake up this morning thinking, I wonder how a Japanese steel corporation interest in buying a U.S. steel company is going to impact the presidential politics of 2024. I'm sure you probably weren't thinking about that today. But there is a Japanese company, Nippon Steel, which would like to buy the iconic U.S. Steel Corporation. It's a $15 billion deal. And, of course, while the investors cheered, the political opposition to the deal grew. A lot of vocal critics decrying the deal as a possible threat to the U.S. supply chain, national security. So the deal raises a big question for President Biden, for the administration, especially during an election year. And, of course, the questions center around the idea of should foreign companies be allowed to buy U.S. companies in industries like steel, and how national should our economy be? What's the president's vision? So let's dive into all of that I know you weren't thinking about this morning, but let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, this is a really fascinating question to me, and it's multifaceted and very complex, but it's one that will have a lot of impact, and it is very telling in terms of how we look at the country and how we look at the economy. David Lynch is columnist at The Washington Post, covers trade and globalization. Brilliant piece in The Washington Post. The Japanese bid for a U.S. steel challenges Biden's approach to the global economy. And David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Boyd.
Great piece. And for our listeners who didn't wake up this morning, as you did, thinking about this, give us a little bit of the lay of the land.
Yeah, as you say, it is an interesting story. A lot of different threads here. On one hand, it's a very simple, or could be a very simple, straightforward corporate transaction. A Japanese company, Nippon Steel, sees an asset in the United States, U.S. steel, that it wants to buy. It thinks it can make more efficient, more profitable by introducing better technology. The Japanese steel companies significantly larger than U.S. Steel, so there's reason to believe that's true. On the other hand, the union, the United Steelworkers, says, hang on, we weren't consulted in this. You, the Japanese company, say you're going to respect our collective bargaining agreement and you're not going to lay anybody off, but we're not sure about that. And meanwhile, you've got the Biden administration in an election year, President Biden counting on support from the union movement writ large and from the steelworkers in particular. So he doesn't want to cross them. So for the moment, everything's in sort of a pause mode because there's a committee of the federal government that reviews such foreign investment deals, and this deal is now effectively going to be parked there for a few months while the committee reviews to see does this have any implication for national security or not.
Yeah, and so let's unpack both those threads in terms of the president and the election. There's clearly some politics to all of this, as you said, mentioned around the unions and so on. So unpack that for us, and then help us understand a little bit in terms of this national interest and what we need to be thinking about, what questions we should be asking as it relates to that.
Yeah, the critics of the deal on Capitol Hill, who include members of both parties, the home state senators there in Pennsylvania, and folks on the right like J.D. Vance from Ohio, Josh Hawley from Missouri, Marco Rubio from Florida, they say, well, wait a minute, if this company becomes Japanese-owned and we get into some crisis down the road where we need lots of steel for the Pentagon to make tanks and planes and whatnot for some sort of armed conflict, how do we know that Nippon Steel will place the Pentagon orders at the front of the line? Maybe they'll have other priorities, and that sounds troublesome. On the other hand, the Pentagon's annual requirements for steel amount to 3% of our current domestic production. Now, that's not 3% of U.S. Steel, the single company's production. That's 3% of all the American steel companies combined. So the folks on the other side say there really isn't much to worry about in a national security sense. But this is one of the things that's going to be thrashed out in this committee, the committee on that reviews foreign investment in the U.S. And there may well be, as they dive into it, there may well be niche products where there is an issue, or there may be, the way this committee works is they can give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or they can give you a conditional thumbs up. They can say, yeah, the deal can go through, but you've got to hive off this one piece, or you've got to sign a contract to do thus and so, and if you do that, then we'll approve it.
Fascinating stuff, and this is one of those, and I love that you included this in your piece. The communication strategy is often every bit as important and has to be every bit as sophisticated as the business strategy. And U.S. Steel, as you pointed out, is an iconic name. And even though it's clearly not what it used to be, there's still a lot that goes around that in terms of U.S. Steel going into the hands of a Japanese company.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it raises, there's sort of that instant reaction, as you say, and we went through this in the 80s, as I point out in the story. You recall when we were all worried about Japanese economic competition back in the late 80s, early 90s, and there was a spate of deals where Japanese investors bought iconic American properties like Rockefeller Center and Pebble Beach Golf Course. And there was a time there where people were like, holy cow, how are these great American assets being sold off to the highest bidder? This just doesn't feel right. But then, a couple of years down the road, we found out, well, actually those Japanese investors bought way at the top of the market. And so all they did was transfer a lot of wealth to American sellers. And, we effectively had the last laugh in that sense. So, when you look at a deal like this, you have that instant reaction of, wow, U.S. Steel, I've heard about that company my whole life. Hate to see it sold off to a foreign company. But, what exactly are we talking about here? We're talking about a company in U.S. Steel that employs half as many people as it did just 20 years ago, that ranks 27th in the world in terms of steel production, that's lost money in 9 of its last 15 years. So, is it, in that context, is it really a surprise that it needs capital from outside its four walls to get things shaped up? Maybe not.
And I love that you went through some and really dispelled some of the myths out there. I did find it was interesting that those who are saying this is a national security issue, the Defense Department actually isn't buying anything directly from U.S. Steel. I think that's an interesting component. Tell me how the president navigates this. Obviously, he's made statements about foreign entities or foreign companies owning big U.S. assets like this. What's the president got to navigate beyond just the steel workers union folks that he hopes will vote for him in November?
Well, he's got an economic policy that is a little bit different from Donald Trump's, but is really different from the Democratic presidents who came before him. Unlike President Obama, President Clinton, President Biden isn't really pursuing any new trade deals of any consequence, no sort of traditional NAFTA style or China WTO deals where you're getting trade liberalization, opening up foreign markets, et cetera. He's concentrated more on what's called industrial policies, where he's trying to invest in domestic industry here, infrastructure, semiconductor production, clean energy products, and he's trying to encourage foreign companies in general to invest. We want to see, or the administration wants to see, foreign automakers and foreign energy companies come and put up big projects and employ Americans. And so, seen through that lens, what Nippon Steel is doing is sort of exactly what the administration has been celebrating for 2 or 3 years. But it does raise this political issue of, President Biden's union supporters are saying, hey, not so fast. And the president, at a minimum, has to make sure that he's seen as being respectful of the union's concerns. And there is a school of thought. I talked to one analyst just today in the wake of the story who is convinced that this controversy will be sort of kicked down the road 1 month at a time until we get safely past the November election, and then it'll either be the next president's problem or Joe Biden can make a choice without having to worry about the ballot box.
Fantastic perspective, great writing. David Lynch, columnist at the Washington Post, covers trade and globalization. That's how you take a story, unpack it, make it meaningful for all of us. David, thanks so much for joining us today.
Anytime, thanks.
great perspective. I know you weren't thinking about U.S. steel being sold to a Japanese company today, but it matters and it has impact on so many different levels, not just in terms of steel, but in terms of politics, in terms of policy, and in terms of the election. And so there's some really fascinating components in there. David is a brilliant thinker and obviously understands and knows his way around this stuff, which is why we have folks like David on the show to help us get past it and to understand why it matters, why we should be thinking about it, why we should be asking questions about these kinds of issues. What does it mean for national security? What does it mean for the economy? What does it mean for the Department of Defense? And what does it mean for what's going on in the White House? All of those things play in. So I know you weren't thinking about this morning, but U.S. Steel and a Japanese company is something to think about today. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Now we know.
November 9th, 2024, BYU and Utah will play in Salt Lake City.
283 days until the rivalry game.
Touchdown, Cougars!
283 days of anticipation.
And the Cougs are right back in it.
Hear about the key matchups and feel all the emotion on this station. We are Utah's legacy home for the Cougars, Big 12 football, and Rivalry Week. KSL News Radio.
Progressive knows we're all trying to save right now.
Hey, at least we're still enjoying baseball on a Saturday night, right?
Even if it is T-ball.
Yeah, but tickets to the majors are just so expensive now. And who knows, maybe we're seeing a pro in the making.
Sure, in like 20 years. How is he safe? Boo! This ump stinks!
The ump is only 14. We don't really do that.
Oh, my bad. You're doing a great job, ump.
Progressive offers you savings without sacrifice. So save big when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
For your big game party, you better pop in to Total Wine and More for a guaranteed win. We've got thousands of bottles down every aisle, and prices so low they're gonna make you smile. Ask our helpful guides for a recommendation to add some wine and beer to your beverage station. Discover something new and let the fun begin. Come on down to Total Wine and More for a guaranteed win.
Drink responsibly, B21.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. You may not have that kind of time for weatherization, energy efficiency, and appliance rebates, but we do. Dominion Energy's ThermWise program has experts who know where and how to save money. They help homeowners and businesses find simple ways to conserve natural gas and rebates through upgrades that may help to save even more. We put our energy into helping you conserve it, so you can spend your 10,000 hours becoming an expert in what matters to you. Start with a home energy plan at thermwise.com.
The Utah Department of Health and Human Services wants to make sure people in Utah have the opportunity to live safe and healthy lives. To do that, they need to understand what services individuals can access in their communities and what barriers they face to accessing services where they live. For this survey, they want to hear from the Utah community, specifically people over 60, adults with disabilities of any kind, caregivers or people that support an older person or adult with a disability, service providers who provide support to older adults or adults with disabilities. They need as many people as possible to take this survey so they can better understand where the gaps are and where improvement is needed. The results of this survey will be delivered to the Division of Aging and Adult Services so they can better meet the needs of people across the state of Utah. To participate in this survey, please go to utahcommunitysurvey.com. All information will remain anonymous and secure. You can also take the survey by phone by calling 800-293-1538, extension 1610.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, the Utah County Sheriff's Office has found a woman's body while searching for a missing 19-year-old. Second, the Fed won't change interest rates yet. They say inflation is still higher than they'd like. And third, Provo's Airport is asking Utah lawmakers for $5.5 million to expand and add more flights. Right now, it's sunny, 61 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and it's a busy day in our nation's capital, and a lot of shenanigans going on, a lot of controversies going on, and some good, solid work that matters right here at home is going on. A bill sponsored by Utah's own Representative Celeste Malloy has been introduced to protect the funding meant to go towards small businesses owned by women. And as the busy calendar is stacking up there in Washington, Representative Malloy joins us on the line, and I know they just called a vote, so we'll get right to it, Congresswoman. Tell us about what you have introduced and give us a sense of why that matters here in the state.
Well, the bill just fixes a loophole. So there's already a program for women-owned small businesses, and the goal is to get 5% of the grants and funding to go to, they call them WASBs, women-owned small businesses. But right now, a business has to verify that it's woman-owned, but it doesn't have to verify that it's small. So what we're trying to do is just close that loophole and make sure those resources are going where they were intended to go, because they're intended to help female entrepreneurs be able to get started.
Yeah, and that's such a crucial component. The entrepreneurial and small businesses are such a driver in the economy, especially here in the state of Utah. And without that proper check and balance there to make sure the funds are going to the right place, we just end up with one more bureaucracy coming out of D.C. as opposed to helping those female entrepreneurs in the state of Utah.
Right. And Utah's a really entrepreneurial state. We love our small businesses. And women in Utah have been really, really forward thinking about starting businesses compared to some other states. And I want to make sure that they're competing on the level playing field and not having to compete with larger, more established firms that are taking advantage of a program they shouldn't be part of.
Yeah, and that's often the case as you get those who can afford the lawyers and lobbyists. They often jump to the head of the line on those kinds of programs, and so making sure that plays out. So give us the timeline and the direction in terms of this bill. You've introduced it. Where does it go from here?
So it got recommended out of committee today, and I think a lot of listeners will be happy to know that it is a bipartisan bill, co-sponsored by one of my Democrat colleagues on the committee, and now it'll go to the House floor for a vote by the entire House of Representatives.
Awesome. And do we have any kind of timeline in terms of when that might actually get to the floor of the House yet?
I don't, but I imagine we have to figure out spending first.
Okay.
And a few other topics that are making headlines this week.
Yeah, just a few things going on there. Before we let you go, Representative, I know they've called a vote, and I know you're probably huddled in one of those corners going onto the floor of the House. Give us.
I'm sorry about all the background noise.
No worries. This is why we do this. This is the ultimate inside source. You're almost inside the chamber. So give us one other thing that we should keep our eye on as we go through what is a pretty crazy week there in Washington, D.C.
We have some important votes coming up this week on immigration and what immigrants should and shouldn't be entitled to in this country. So that's another thing to keep an eye on.
All right, fantastic. And we will let you go in and cast that vote representing the state of Utah. We appreciate you carving out a little time on a busy day. This is an important effort as it relates to the women-owned small businesses. Level the playing field. Let's make sure those funds get to the right place, especially for those Utah women-owned small businesses that can tap into that as well. Representative Malloy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, that's Utah Representative Celeste Malloy, and this is an important piece of legislation. As the representative pointed out, it's a bipartisan bill recommended out of committee, and so now it just needs to find a spot on the congressional calendar. No small task, by the way, with the way things are stacking up in our nation's capital, but it's an important one. We always say that it's entrepreneurs that really drive freedom, not just here in the United States, but around the world. We often talk about the founding fathers and founding mothers and the great, wise, noble souls, and they were. But at their core, they were really a bunch of entrepreneurs and small business owners who were tired of being overtaxed and overregulated by a big government that was not responsive to the need. They wanted to run those. They wanted to grow those businesses. They wanted the freedom to pursue their own version of their American dream. And so often we lose that in all of the things that go on that make it difficult for entrepreneurs and small business owners to be successful. And often that happens with a lot of regulations and an inability to access capital or to get those funds that would be helpful to get them moving and off the ground. And so I think this bill from Representative Celeste Malloy, as well as Representative Hillary Schulten, she's a Democrat out of Michigan. They are members of the House Committee on Small Business. So they introduced this Women-Owned Small Business Integrity Act. And the reason integrity is in there is because it would require the Small Business Administration to certify that these funds that are going out from the Small Business Administration are meeting the right criteria. Often they have gone to larger companies rather than the small women-owned businesses. And that's the real key. And again, when you get big government bureaucracy involved in these kinds of programs, a lot of things go sideways. We saw that during the course of the pandemic, how much of the money that was supposed to go to small businesses to help sustain and keep the workforce intact ended up going to waste, fraud, and a whole lot of abuse. A whole lot of that money went to all the wrong places because it just wasn't managed properly. The oversight wasn't there. The transparency wasn't there. And sadly, on the back end, there was no accountability for how those funds were being distributed, where they were going, what the checks and balances were in the system. And so I applaud Representative Malloy for introducing, again, bipartisan bill to ensure that the federal dollars go to verified women-owned small businesses, not just those that are big enough to be able to afford some lawyers and lobbyists to work through the system. And that's a big part of this whole process. And so we'll continue to watch this one as it moves through. As Representative Malloy mentioned, it came out of committee, voted out there, again, bipartisan bill. And now it gets into that tricky space of, with all the other things going on in Washington, when will Speaker Mike Johnson put that onto the floor to actually get a vote? And sadly, this is where we end up losing track of a lot of these kinds of things. But we won't do that. We're going to continue to follow it because it does matter. And I think it matters in particular because Utah is the home to some extraordinary women-owned small businesses and some women-owned small businesses that have become great businesses and even empires through a lot of hard work and heavy lifting and the grit and grace of some pretty extraordinary women in the process. And so we're going to continue to track all of that. We'll have Congresswoman Celeste Malloy back on to give us an update of how this is moving forward. And again, I think it's one of those things that we don't talk enough about, a good bipartisan bill, focused. It's not 27 different topics. It's a singular focused bill, which I think they all should be. Single item, single subject bill is a good strategy. And then you can actually move it through and see what the results are. And radical stuff, hold people accountable for what the results are in the end. So we're going to watch. If you're watching C-SPAN right now, you probably saw Representative Malloy sprint onto the floor of the House to cast a vote. And that's what they do in Washington, D.C., and we're really grateful to Congresswoman Celeste Malloy and her team for making that happen from the hallway, rolling in to cast a vote today. All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. More Inside Sources yet ahead on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Becky Bruce. KSL's top local story this hour. Investigators looking for a missing 19-year-old woman in Utah County say they have found a body, but they cannot confirm yet if it's her. McKenna Minor has been missing since Sunday. The Utah County Sheriff's Office tells us it looks like the body they found died by suicide. We have mental health resources for anyone struggling on our website, kslnewsradio.com. The sponsor of the so-called bathroom bill is speaking for the first time since the governor signed it into law. Representative Kara Birkeland's bill requires people to use the bathroom that matches what's on their birth certificate. She doesn't think it will impact Utah's chances to host the Olympics.
The Olympics have been in China. They are the worst human rights in the world. They have the most violations of anyone in the world, and they went there.
She says a person would not be prosecuted unless they are loitering or being lewd or creepy around a restroom. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The man who founded Facebook faced tough questioning today at the Senate Judiciary Committee. Republican Senator Josh Hawley asked Mark Zuckerberg to apologize to families harmed by social media. Zuckerberg had his back to the microphone so that he could address that apology directly to those parents. Lawmakers were asking Facebook to prioritize kids' safety online. Your money at this moment, the Dow ends the day down 317 points, the S&P 500 down 79, the NASDAQ down 346. Coming up, you don't need a coat today, but you might need that umbrella tomorrow. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Valentine's Day is here. This year, give the ultimate gift. Name a star after your sweetheart. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For 45 years, we've named millions of stars for celebrities, dignitaries, and individuals worldwide. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can give the most memorable gift. The star your name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Fewer words, less paper.
No, it was so you could say it faster.
No, it's to be more iconic.
Must be a tech thing. But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish.
Sounds easy.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-859-3220. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 to 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-859-3220. That's 800-859-3220 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-859-3220. 800-859-3220.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
It's the Boat Show, February 1st through the 4th at Mountain America Expo.
Save $2 at utahboatshow.com.
The Boat Show, fun for the whole family.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Ricky Meese, how's it going out there?
We still have crews on the scene of this multiple vehicle crash in Provo, northbound I-15 after Center Street. All vehicles are on the right shoulder and delays east and westbound directions on 104th South River Heights Drive. Now, this is South Jordan Parkway, approximately 3400 west, with a crash there blocking lanes of travel. Salt Lake Magazine calls Swan Lake breathtaking, featuring the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live with the Ballet West Orchestra, February 9th through the 17th. Buy tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Warm today. We're actually already at our high for the day. Cloudy tomorrow with a chance of showers. Rain likely on Friday with much cooler temperatures. Right now it's fair 60 degrees in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Becky Bruce from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, in the midst of all the noise and distractions regarding the border security negotiations going on in Congress, in the Senate in particular, there is an actual bill that is getting very close to being finalized. Soon, we will actually be able to read it and see what the negotiators for the Democrats and the Republicans have been working on for the past several months. So the bigger question, of course, once we figure out what's in it, then what's the path? Are there any chances that the bill can be passed in the Senate? What happens when it goes over to the House? How much time will legislators actually have to read the bill? Will there be a chance to offer amendments to make the bill better or to change it before they call for a vote? Those are all really crucial questions that we have to get to. And sadly, when we do things the wrong way, process matters. Remember, process matters. And when we don't do it the right way, when it is behind closed doors, thrown over the wall at the last minute, then everybody gets frustrated, and rightly so. And actually, we all should get frustrated with that process, by the way, and it doesn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It's the same. And I've seen it. And everyone gets a little frustrated because nobody's in the room where it's happening. You got just a very small number of elites or those that got chosen to be on the particular negotiating team. They get to see it, they work it through, and then they throw it over the wall. No one's seen anything. Nobody knows for sure. And then they say, well, this is the best we could do. Or the other side is demanding this. This is all we could do. So we just have to vote yes. And we should be frustrated as voters because we actually want our representatives to represent us, not their party, not their political platform. They represent us. And if they're not involved in negotiating what's in the bill, if they don't even get a chance to really read it before they have to vote on it, if there's no chance for our representatives to say, I think we need to amend this, or wow, this part of it really worries me. Can we have a conversation or a debate about maybe a way we could tweak that particular bit of language or provision within the bill? And that's the process that we should be following. But we are so far away from regular order in Congress today that we end up with a lot of things that, again, end up to be a lot more motion than they do forward movement in solving the problem, which is why they're there. Now, earlier today, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson gave his first speech as Speaker of the House on the floor of the House. And, of course, it's centered around immigration and border security. He criticized the Biden administration for not doing more to control the flow of people coming across our southern border.
His policy choices and Secretary Mayorkas' refusal to comply with the law are driving this border catastrophe. The Biden administration has replaced detain and deport with catch and release. Instead of order, they have chosen for us disorder and chaos. Rather than securing the homeland, they've ceded the homeland to cartels and traffickers.
All right, broad accusations there. I get it. But we got to get to what do we do about it? That's the question. Now, over the weekend, Senator James Langford, who is a solid soul, I will just say that, whether you like his politics or not, and he represents the people of Oklahoma in a noble and honorable way. I don't think he had any idea what was going to be unleashed on him for being the lead negotiator for the Republicans in this process. He made several appearances over the weekend because there are so many rumors about what is and what is not in the border bill. And again, he's been the lead negotiator for the Republicans. And so he tried to address some of those questions from his own party in terms of just hold on, let's at least get the bill before we all go crazy about what is or isn't in it.
It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year. We all have an oath to the Constitution, and we have a commitment to say we're going to do whatever we can to be able to secure the border.
So, again, regardless of where you fall politically, Senator Langford's right, and he's given the hard truth to his own team, which to me is the test. It's easy to yell angry talking points at your opponents. It's another thing to turn around to your friends and those that are supposedly on your team and say, wait a minute, you said you wanted this. Now we have this. Why is it changed? And is it just because it's an election year? Senator Langford went on to address some of the rumors about the bill, some of the concerns in terms about that control and how it may allow up to 5,000 migrants to cross the border without any real consequence.
This is not about letting 5,000 people in a day. This is the most misunderstood section of this proposal. And let me tell you briefly what it is. In the last 4 months, we've had 7 days that we had less than 5,000 people. This is set up for if you have a rush of people coming at the border closes down, no one gets in. This is not someone standing at the border with a little clicker saying, I'm going to let one more in, we're at 4,999, and then it has to stop. It is a shutdown of the border, and everyone actually gets turned around.
Really important perspective there. Again, the rumor mill gets pretty rampant when it comes to this kind of bill, especially in an election year, which is part of the problem. It shouldn't matter. Yesterday, I spoke with Alexander Bolton, who is a reporter for The Hill, who's been following these negotiations very closely. He said what we are waiting on now is the time it takes to actually draft a bill like this. So the parameters, I think, are pretty strong, but you got to turn it into legislative language, and that's where it gets really complex.
The negotiators have a deal. They have the framework worked out. That was something that Chris Murphy, the lead Democratic negotiator, announced over the weekend. There is a deal, but it's very complex, the legislation, the policy. So actually getting it all drafted is taking up quite a bit of time.
Alexander Bolton also shared with me on the show yesterday kind of the state of the negotiations between the Senate and the House. That's where the real stick is going to be, in my view. Will the current strategy that's in place get it passed in the Senate, and will that create pressure on the House? What does that look like? Here's how Alexander responded.
Well, I think McConnell's in a tough position here because Mike Johnson, the Speaker, has really changed his criteria for passing funding for Ukraine. I mean, he has insisted that any money for Ukraine would have to include some border security provisions. That's what the Senate negotiators have been working on now for a couple of months. That's exactly what Mike Johnson asked for, and now he says that this bill, if it comes over to the House, is dead on arrival. So, I mean, what is Leader McConnell to do? Well, I think he's just right now staying the course, and they're going to produce this deal and then try to sell it to the party as being strong progress in terms of securing the border.
So that will be the interesting test on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, of course, the Democrats are risking, I think, some more challenges for the president. President Biden's support among progressives has been wavering on a number of fronts, including what's happening in the Middle East. But the border is another one where the president really struggles with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And I think, again, politically, the president is worried, his team is worried that if that support amongst those progressives continues to be unraveled or cracked, that's going to be a problem for him come November of 2024, once we get to the first Tuesday of November. And so all of those things are going to play a part and have an impact in terms of how this moves forward. The communication strategy around it from both the Democrats and the Republicans is very fascinating. The president, of course, really flipped a switch and turned a lot of heads from his own party, talking about he just wants the power. and he'll shut it down, that he'll shut down the border. He said to a group of reporters as he was getting on Marine One, the helicopter there outside the White House yesterday, he said, that's all I've ever wanted. Just give me the power, give me the people. I'll shut it down. I'll get it done. And, of course, that was a bit of a head snapper in terms of the progressive wing of the party and many Democrats who said, now, wait a minute. Is this going to be something that is different from what we thought it was going to be? So House Democrats are also going to have some interesting things to look at beyond just the rhetoric that Republicans and Democrats are continuing to go at each other. The most fascinating thing for me, of course, is to actually discover what's in the bill. Because once we know what's in the bill, then we can have a very different kind of discussion about what to do with the bill. But we can't do that until we have legislative text and until it has been released so that every member of Congress can take a look at it, say, I agree with this, disagree with that, I'd love it if we could tweak this. But the question will be, will they be given that time? Many senators, including Utah senators, have said, look, we got to have time to make sure we can read it and digest it, and we hope there is a process by which we can make it better and offer amendments and have votes and debate on those amendments. And then, of course, beyond that, you look at the politics, the presidential politics, former President Trump heavily weighing in. We've seen a lot of the about faces that have taken place in the House as a result of that. And then we've also seen President Biden weigh in heavily in an election year. And so all of those things will continue to make this probably more confusing than clarifying over the next few days. But we'll continue to watch all of it because it is important. We have to get this right. And I do maintain my belief that if we could pull the politics out of this, we could solve the vast majority, I think well over 90%, maybe even over 94% of the issues around border security and immigration. I still believe they could be done in an afternoon on the floor of the House and the Senate because everybody agrees on the principles and the policies that need to get in place. It is not the extremes that we hear the most about. Most members of Congress agree with what needs to be done: a secure border, an entry-exit system, an upgraded system that makes it easier for people to come here legally rather than illegally. Green cards, H-1B visas, there's a host of things that everybody agrees on. But everyone is afraid. They're afraid of losing the political point. And whenever we're so obsessed with focusing on the political points, we don't get to the policy that actually solves the problem. And that's where we got to get. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You probably love some Utah Jazz tickets. Am I right?
Through traffic all the way to the finish line and let it up and in.
KSL wants you to go see the Jazz Sixers game. Listen to Tim and Amanda Wednesday and Thursday morning for your chance to win Primo Jazz tickets Wednesday and Thursday on Utah's Morning News on KSL News Radio.
This Monday Tax Tip is brought to you by Susan Spears, CEO of the Utah Association of CPAs.
If you haven't already funded your retirement for 2023, do so by April 15th. That's the deadline for contributing to a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Making the deductible contribution could help you lower your tax liability this year. To qualify for the full annual IRA deduction in 23, you must either 1, not be eligible to participate in a company retirement plan, or 2, if you are eligible, your adjusted gross income must be less than $73,000 for single or head of household filers, or $129,000 or less for couples filing jointly. The maximum IRA contribution you can make is $6,500 or $7,500 if you're 50 or older. Discuss your IRA deduction options with your CPA.
Get the most out of your income tax preparation when you hire a CPA. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. Listen to KSL on Monday for more tax tips from the Utah Association of CPAs.
The biggest hunting show in the West is back, along with Utah's top 200 hunting permits for just $5 each. It's the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, February 15th to 18th. Talk with hundreds of guides, outfitters, and exhibitors. Book a hunt, see the latest gear, and best of all, you could hunt Utah's biggest bucks and bulls for just $5. It's all at the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo, produced in cooperation with the Utah Office of Tourism. Get tickets and details at huntexpo.com.
I'm not going to lie. It's nice when I see someone I haven't seen for a long time and they say, Amanda, you've lost weight. I mean, that's nice. I lost 34 pounds a couple of years ago, and I've kept it off with the Soda Weight Loss program, sodaweightloss.com. Here is Rosie.
They always ask me what I'm doing, how much weight I've lost, like if there's any diet that I'm doing. And I'm really excited to tell them about the Soda program. It's one of those things that I think is worth every penny, especially when you're investing in your own health.
That is the way I look at it. It was an investment in myself.
It really is. And when you talk about the health side of it, being overweight leads to high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, sleep apnea. The list is long. My daughter Amber, who lost 42 pounds, talks about how much better she feels, not just emotionally about herself, but physically, and being able to do some of the things she wasn't able to do before.
You know, my doctor used to tell me, you need to lose some weight, Amanda. I finally did with Soda Weight Loss.
Get it off and keep it off at Soda Weight Loss. Go to sodaweightloss.com, spelled SOTA, stands for state of the art.
Are you my type? Well, you're someone's blood type. ARUP Blood Services needs you today. Sign up to donate blood at visitutahblood.org.
Are you one of those people? You know, self-driven, confident, love sales and understanding marketing. Would you like to work with a variety of businesses, large and small, helping them succeed? Do you want to actually make the kind of money you know you should make? Are you looking for a career with an opportunity to grow? Well, we're looking for those people. Bonneville Salt Lake Media Group is looking for account executives from a variety of backgrounds and experience levels to connect with high-potential business opportunities for digital marketing. KSL Podcasts, KSL News Radio, 103.5 The Era, FM 100.3, and 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. It's advertising sales that will change your world. Not to mention the world-class list of benefits we're famous for. You'll work in person and remotely in a dynamic team culture with opportunities to reach audiences both locally and globally. If this is the kind of work that interests you, text careers to 57500. That's careers to 57500. Text careers to 57500.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, the Utah County Sheriff's Office reports finding a body while searching for 19-year-old McKenna Minor. The body has yet to be identified. Second, Representative Kara Birkeland says the so-called bathroom bill will not affect Utah's chances of hosting the 2034 Olympics. And third, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has apologized to families hurt by social media. It came during a tough session with the Senate Judiciary Committee. Right now, it's sunny and 60 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, this last segment will be from our friends at Sesame Street. If you've been on social media over the last 48 hours, you have seen on what used to be known as Twitter, X, Elmo has taken the world by storm. 182 million views of a very simple post with 2 sentences, and short sentences at that. Elmo is just checking in, and then the big question, how is everybody doing? And that lit the fire and the fuse to all kinds of posts. And so we're going to go through a few of those. How's everybody doing? We've been talking a little bit about how everybody is doing on a wide range of things as we've gone through the program today. So I want to hit just a couple of those. From a political standpoint, in the how is everybody doing category, really interesting on the presidential front, brand new Quinnipiac University national poll coming out saying that Nikki Haley actually leads President Biden by 5 points in a hypothetical head-to-head 2024 matchup. And the former president, Donald Trump, fares less well. He actually is a couple points behind President Biden in that poll. But here's the thing in the real how is everybody doing category, and that is what happens if it's more than a 2-person race? What happens if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. continues to get ballot access. What happens if No Labels decides that they are going to put forward a ticket, and you end up with a 4 or 5 person race for president? Everything changes. Really interesting. President Biden actually wins a 5-way race against both Nikki Haley and Donald Trump, either way. And the splits are really interesting to me. And so that's a really fascinating how's everybody doing moment, is you have to start looking at those independent voters, Republican voters, and how that all plays out. And so that becomes very interesting in terms of the messaging strategy, because it used to be you could just do that easy divide. It's us or them. But if it's a 4-person race, if you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in there plus a No Labels candidate in there, let's just say it's 4. There's obviously a few other minor party candidates that will be on the ballot as well. But that becomes a very different kind of conversation. And it requires a different kind of communication from the campaigns. And who will be able to adapt to that? And who does it hurt? Who does it help? Well, currently in a 5-way race, President Biden ends up getting the win. He has about 36%. Nikki Haley would be at 29%. In that same scenario, he beats former President Trump by several points as well in a 4 or 5-person race. So that's an interesting thing to look at and think about as we move it all forward. Also in the How's Everybody Doing category, we had Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson joined us on the line for the show today, talking about the fact that we are going to hear a lot over the coming months that this election is about the future of the country, that it is the existential threat to democracy. The future of democracy is on the ballot. And she pointed out something really important, and it goes all the way back to Lincoln, that no administration by any extreme of wickedness or folly can very seriously injure the government in the short space of 4 years. Now, Lincoln even couched that a little bit. Lincoln said it's virtue and vigilance that are the key to countering a bad president or a bad administration. And that's on us. That's a we the people issue. So how are you doing? As Elmo was asking, it depends on how we are doing and what we are doing and how we're doing it. What kind of conversations are we engaging in, and where is that actually leading all of us? Also had Celeste Malloy join us from literally steps outside of the floor, the House chamber there, as she was getting ready to run in to cast a vote for the people of her district here in the state of Utah. And she also had a very important one in terms of how are you doing if you're a woman-owned small business, how are you doing? A lot of those funds that are available to women-owned small businesses are going to not-so-small businesses. So she has a bill that has been passed out of committee. It's a bipartisan bill that will fix that loophole, that will no longer allow some of these larger organizations from tapping into that money, those funds that are designated for women-owned small businesses. So that's an important how are you doing today kind of conversation as well. Ultimately, though, I want to land and end up with the real question, and that is, how are you doing? And that is an important question that we have to keep getting to. And the fascinating thing to me in watching and taking a quick survey of the 182 million views that Elmo got on what used to be known as Twitter, what is now X, a lot of them were very negative, like, hey, I'm having a bad day, having a hard time with my boss at work. Hey, I've got family issues. I got financial issues, and a host of other things that were very interesting. And while there is a lot of negative and a lot of hard out there, there's also a lot of extraordinary things going on. And we are, for the most part, a very blessed nation. When you look around the world, we may have some struggles and problems to fix, but we're still better off than just about anywhere else in the world. And we should be grateful for that. And the ultimate question, if you're not okay today, reach out, because that's not okay. It's not okay for you to not reach out. Reach out, because we need you in the game. And if you know somebody